All right, here we go, everyone. Week 2 of our Bible study, which hopefully is going to remain a regular thing. I don't know about you. I mentioned this in a number of the videos last week. I had a great time actually, just like getting into the Word and taking some time to be able to read it, prepare to make the video, in fact, but then to be able to talk about it and share that with you. So I hope it was good for you as well. So let's get into it. So we got to open up your Bible here, grab the word, and dive in. So we're in the second book of Kings, chapter 5, verses 14 through 17. So if you're unfamiliar, the second book of Kings, it's usually towards the beginning. It's during the historical time that the Bible is written, where you can imagine it's about the different kings. It's about the kings of Israel and also the kings of Judah. So the country of Israel splits. There's the 10 northern tribes, and then there's the 2 southern tribes of Israel. And so the books of Kings, first and second Kings, it just kind of goes back and forth with listing off who the kings were in the northern part in Israel and who the kings were in the southern part in Judah, and just talks about whether they were wicked or good in the sight of the Lord, doing what was evil or doing what was righteous. So anyways, that's what's going on in the second books of Kings. So Second Kings chapter 5 verses what is it, 14 through 17. So we'll read through that and then I'll see if we can't get some background here to help it break open to us a little bit more. So um, chapter 5 verses 14 through 17. So Naaman went down and plunged into the Jordan 7 times at the word of the man of God. His flesh became again like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. He returned with his whole retinue to the man of God. On his arrival, he stood before him and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a gift from your servant." "As the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not take it," Elisha replied. And despite Naaman's urging, he still refused. Naaman said, "If you will not accept, please let me, your servant, have 2 mule loads of earth, for I will no longer offer holocaust or sacrifice to any other god except to the Lord." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So I think just checking this out. Yeah. So the reading you'll hear on Sunday, it inserts the name Elisha before we heard it actually from the word. That kind of happens sometimes when we have readings at Mass that just kind of jump into something. They might insert a name or something just so that we can understand more fully who's being spoken about. And this is actually part of the trick of this reading that we have today, is that it's part of a much bigger story. So I'd actually encourage you to read the entire chapter 5 of Second Kings. But for that matter, the story of Elisha, which, so just on that, you might hear his name pronounced in different ways. So there's Elisha, there's Elisha, there's Elisha, and maybe something else too. But I typically say Elisha. If you attend Mass and you hear someone else pronounce it differently, that's okay. But nonetheless, the story of Elisha is connected to the story of Elijah. So it's kind of confusing because there's Elijah and Elisha, or Elijah and Elisha. That's maybe a little bit better of a distinction there. Anyway, so that goes all the way back to First Kings chapter 17. Elijah comes onto the scene. So Elijah is a prophet of God, prophets of God. They're called by God to go and preach to people, basically to call people to follow God's ways because they've strayed. And so the prophets come and they call people to follow God's ways, and they might point out, or they oftentimes point out, the sins of the people. Elijah seems like he's that, but especially when it comes to like the leadership type people. So he has all these kind of different things going on. He performs some miracles. He's really powerful. The Lord is with him because the Lord has called him to be, in some ways, like an instrument of the Lord to bring God's people back into a good relationship with the Lord. Um, so he's powerful. And then what happens in chapter 19? Elijah goes to this other man, Elisha, and he calls him to follow after him. And so then they're like this tag team, this duo, Elijah and Elisha. And Elisha's job at this point is not necessarily to be a prophet, but is to follow Elijah, to learn from him, to be like a disciple in some ways. And then what happens? This kind of crazy thing happens. So in let's see here, in Second Kings chapter 2, there's this scene that happens when um, Elijah it's like his time on earth is complete. And so Elisha kind of comes to know this, and so he asks Elijah to that somehow the Lord might give Elisha a double portion of the spirit of Elijah. So that he could somehow be more powerful even than Elijah. And Elijah says, "Well, that's a pretty big ask. And if you see me taken up, then you know that your prayer will be granted. But if you don't see me taken up, then you won't." And so then later on in that chapter, there's this kind of crazy scene where suddenly there's like a flaming chariot with flaming horses, and it passes between them. And as it passes between them, it like takes Elijah with it up into heaven. So it's this strange thing. Like he's just suddenly brought up into heaven. And as he's brought up into heaven, his mantle falls down, and Elisha grabs the mantle, and he becomes the prophet, the successor to Elijah. And then we see him actually really powerful for the Lord. Not just powerful, but actually, so there, as I understand it, there are 7 miracles recorded of Elijah in the books of Kings. And there are 14 miracles of Elisha recorded in the books of Kings. So the whole double portion thing, it seems like that's what happened, that he was twice as powerful. Although in hindsight, Elijah is still kind of the more well-known prophet. It seems like Elisha, he worked in maybe more hidden or small ways, but nonetheless, he still did powerful things for the Lord. So that's kind of what's going on. So then in chapter 5, we hear about this guy Naaman, who is not an Israelite. He's not he's not a Jewish man. He's not one of God's people, but he's leprous. So he has this disease, leprosy, and an Israelite captive girl tells Naaman, "Well, if only you could go talk to the man of God, the prophet of Israel, he could cure you." And so Naaman gets a letter written and sent to the king of Israel. And it says, "Okay, with this letter, I'm sending my servant Naaman so that you can heal him or cure him of his leprosy." And then the king, it's like he tears his garments, which is a sign of like repentance or like I'm cursed kind of thing. And he's like, "Who do you think I am that I can just cure this?" Right? What does he say? Am I a God with power over life and death? Which I think is an important thing, right? That am I a God with power over life and death that I could cure leprosy? And so he's just like, look, this guy's just trying to pick a fight with me because he knows that I can't do it, and so he's making an impossible request. But then someone jumps in and says, "Hold on a minute, there's a man of God here, a prophet who can make this happen." And so the king sends Naaman to Elisha, and Naaman, with his leprosy, comes to Elisha. And Elisha says, "Go and dip in the Jordan River 7 times, and you will be cleaned. You will be cleansed and cured of your leprosy," which is a fascinating thing um, because the Jordan River is a dirty river. It's not clean. And this is kind of Naaman's response. He's like, "There are way cleaner rivers where I'm from, back home. Wouldn't it be enough for me to just go wash in those?" Like I was expecting he would do something crazy, like wave his hand over the leprosy and it would be cured. Like I would, or call on his God and do a little dance, do a little jig, and that suddenly everything would be better. And so he's like, this is absurd. I'm so angry about this. And his servant, one of his servants, just says, "Hold on, sir. Like if he had told you to do something crazy, you surely would have done it. But as it is, he told you to do something simple that seems absurd, but nonetheless, shouldn't you just do this thing?" So that's where our reading jumps in, is that he goes and he dips himself in the Jordan River 7 times, and he miraculously comes out clean of his leprosy. Right. So this is what's going on is right. So there's kind of two things. Is we're seeing the power of Elisha, the power of God ultimately working through his prophet Elisha, uh, and then what's more, we're seeing this sort of humble obedience that says, "Okay, what you're commanding here doesn't actually make sense, but I guess I'll do it because you're a prophet of God, and for that matter, I have nowhere else to go. Like I can't cure myself of leprosy, so I guess I'll do it." And then we see the Lord coming through in this sort of humble obedience. So that's what's going on here. I think another thing that's worth pointing out is, um, I mean, there's maybe a couple more things, but another thing that's worth pointing out is this: is Naaman uh, is not an Israelite. In other words, he's not one of God's chosen people, and yet something happens that the Lord is able to work this miracle for this Gentile person. And it's through God working the miracle for the Gentile person that the Gentile person then comes to believe in God as the Lord, like as the God. of the universe. Um, so it's just a fascinating thing, and this I think actually gets to our psalm response, um, that comes from Psalm 98. So again, the psalm response, it can be broken up a bit, different than what you find in the scriptures. But if you open up to Psalm 98, so our the response verse is from verse 2, part B. So if you ever see letters when it comes to like Bible chapter and verse, the letters like A or B or C, it's always sort of, it just means the verse is multiple sentences or multiple parts of sentences. And so the B would be the second part of the sentence. So for example, verse 2 is, the Lord has made his victory known. He has revealed his triumph for the nations to see. Um, so our psalm response is, the Lord has revealed to the nations his saving power. So I'm actually not sure how that connects, but nonetheless, we know that's in there. So the Lord has made his victory known. He has revealed his triumph for the nations to see. Okay, his saving power revealed to the nations. So to the nations, right? It's not just to the Israelites. Of course, the Israelites are his chosen people, but this is something that we see. It's somewhat subtle, somewhat not subtle in the Old Testament. It's more clear in the New Testament that the disciples of Jesus had this sort of awareness of like God's God's salvation is not just for the Israelites, but in fact it's for the world, it's for the nations. And and we see this playing out in the Old Testament here with Naaman, that the Lord, his saving power is not just for his people, but it's for this Gentile believer too. And we see other cases of this. They're not as common maybe as we see in the New Testament, but nonetheless, like the Lord's salvation is for all people. And how does he do it? So we can look at this first stanza. So sing to the Lord a new song, who has done marvelous deeds, whose right hand and holy arm have won the victory. Just who's done marvelous deeds. What does it mean if something is marvelous? Well, it means that we are meant to marvel at it. And what does it mean to marvel? I think it sort of requires doing something different that we don't do often in our day, which is just slow down and let it be something that we reflect on. Something is it's a marvel only if I give myself time to really think about what took place. This non-Israelite had leprosy. He had a disease that would deteriorate and eat away at his skin, at his limbs, and eventually would lead to his death. And he didn't believe in the God of Israel, but he came to the man who represented the God of Israel, and that man told him to do something simple, silly even. He did it, and then he was cured. Like that's I take a minute to just marvel at that. That's the Lord has done marvelous deeds. And it's his right hand and his holy arm have won the victory. In other words, you see this phrase, it just means like God's power. In other words, like God is so powerful that this guy believes in other gods. He believed in false gods. And the Lord, the true God, proves here, he's revealing to the nations that he is the only God. Right? His right hand. In other words, his right hand is stronger than any other God out there. He could knock out any other God out there. And so he does. He proves his strength. He proves his power. And he does it, what? In the sight of the nations. He has revealed his triumph for the nations to see. He wants everybody to know it, that he's powerful. Right? So think about that for a minute. Like when you think of God, do you think of his power? I hope you do, because our God is powerful. He can do anything. He can do anything. And so for us to take some time and just simply marvel at the beautiful thing. And then what happens when we see his right hand? Well, our response is just like that of Naaman, which is to say, please let me, your servant, have 2 mule loads of earth, for I will no longer offer all holocaust or sacrifice to any other God except to the Lord. In other words, there's no one else out there who's worth sacrificing to except to the Lord, the true God of the universe. And so that is the only God. I'm going to go back. Naaman is saying, I'm going to go back home to the land where they worship false gods, but I will only offer sacrifice to the Lord, the true God. And so I ask for this soil. This may be another reflection question for us to ask ourselves. Am I am I willing to say this, that any sacrifice I make, it is only going to be worth it in the end if I offer that sacrifice to the Lord, the true God. And so nothing else is worthy of as much attention, or really even of my attention, compared to what the Lord, the true God, is worthy of. Beautiful. So there we go. I hope this was helpful for you. I will see you again with the next video tomorrow. Okay, God